Good afternoon, good morning. This is our third session of our Summer Future Leaders program. My name is Emily Cabbage. I am your NAIFA staff host through this journey that you have embarked on. And today we've got a really great opportunity. So we've got three different financial professionals on the call today. So we've got Rick down in Texas, we got Derek in Ohio, and we've got Mimie out in California. And we're going to let them kind of talk a little bit about do a brief introduction about who they are, what school they went to, and what they currently do. And so it's going to be a great opportunity to really get some dialogue. So I know sometimes we've waited till the end to ask questions, but feel free to use that chat feature if you're participating live and ask these questions because this is a great opportunity to hear from just a variety of different experiences and career paths. So Rick, I took you while you were taking a drink, but I will get started with you first. So go ahead, Rick, and then Derek and Mimie go ahead and follow.
So just brief intro. So Rick Demko, I moved to Houston, Texas in 2015 with my young family. I moved with a newborn, which I don't advise people to do. But I've been in business for 15, 16 years. Really, I first got licensed in the insurance space in 2011. So it's at 12-ish years doing this. And it's been a broken road to get to where I'm at. So my career has kind of done this full circle path. I really specialize in life insurance. I don't hide what I am. I don't say I'm financial services or a financial planner or anything else. I do have a bunch of letters after my name. We call it alphabet soup. I've got pretty much all of them, and very active within our professional associations. And I'm a partner of my firm, an equity partner. We are a wealth management firm, but I oversee all of the lines of insurance that leave our offices. I've got a staff of about 17 folks, and we do business all around the country.
Thanks, Rick. Good morning, good afternoon to those on the East Coast. My name is Derek Scheetz, and I am in Columbus, Ohio. I've been in the financial services industry since October of 2015. I have been, initially it was a product type, I guess, career path for me, where I was in there selling specific products to specific individuals. That blossomed into the ability to become a financial planner. So I work with, similar to Rick, I work with clients all across the country. I have clients in 37 states now. And that's kind of a nice thing with Zoom. We're able to still meet and keep up with our clients, even though we may not be geographically together. So I transitioned from one firm to another firm in 2016. So I had only been in the industry for 8 months, and I made what I thought to be a permanent decision, and I am still with that same firm now. So it was the best decision I could have made besides getting into the industry. That was the best decision first, was getting into the industry. I would have never found Lifetime Financial Growth had I not taken that step to get into the industry. Again, I have a young family, not so young, well, younger than Rick now, I assume, because you moved in 2015 and you had a young one then. I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. They are 12 months apart. So if you can see it in my eyes, I did not sleep well last night. The 2-year-old is having a sleep regression stage. So anyways, thank you all for being here, and I will share more very soon.
Derek, don't they call that Irish twins when you have them 12 months apart? Okay.
Yes, they do. And we learned that it is not easy.
I can imagine. All right. Well, I am Mimie Yoon-Lee, and I have, giving out years. I'm not going to do that. Just know that I am the grandma of this group. Let me just tell you that. I have been in the industry for a very long time. I started off actually, well, we're going to go into that, aren't we? So I won't give away that piece of it, but I'm with a firm, an RIA firm, a registered investment advisor firm called Hightower Advisors, and that's where I am today. And so with that, Emily, I'll hand it back to you so that you can kind of go through the questions. I didn't want to preempt any of those answers there.
Yeah, no problem. So, so let's talk a little bit about what you initially got your degree in and how you got into the industry. So, I don't know, Mimi, since you were just talking, and I know all of your stories a little bit, but you know, yours definitely was not didn't jump immediately into financial services. So I'll have you.
Yeah, it didn't. So after I graduated from college, I was working. So in college, just so you guys know, I was working 4 jobs at one time in that last year. So that meant I thought, oh no, I'm in my junior year. I got a senior year coming up. I haven't done an internship yet. So I added an internship with US Bank. I was also working at the Hibachi's, like fast food place. So that was food for me, right? And then I worked at the cash office bookstore, the bookstore, the cash office at the bookstore. So that helped me get the discount from my books. And then lastly, I worked at the Gap. That gave me clothing. So if you think about it, I tried to make sure I covered all my bases in life. And that was a lot. I don't know if I would recommend anybody doing 4 jobs, but it certainly was a good learning experience. And if I could give you guys one little bit of nugget on that, is like, take every experience in your life as exactly that experience. Don't look at it negatively. It's like, what did I learn from that? And then continue to grow and build off of that. So off the soapbox for a second. So I went to school. I originally applied for French, and I got accepted for French at UC Santa Cruz. And then I thought, well, what the heck am I going to do with that? Am I going to be UN translator? Is that what I'm going to do with my life? So then I ended up, I don't know if I recommend this to you, but I did. So again, this is another learning experience. I followed a boy to another school in the UC system in California. You're allowed to do 1 quarter at another UC as just sort of a way to sort of see what the other school is like. Well, I bypassed that system. So I did the first quarter, then I already did the second quarter. And by the time I did the third quarter, the dean called me and said, you know, this firm was really geared for a 1 quarter deal. You're in there for the third quarter. We've already accepted you, but by that time I already applied for a full transfer. So I graduated from UC Davis. And as you just heard from my degrees, it was definitely not, I was starting off with French, but when I went to UC Davis, I did the Ag Econ. So it's agricultural economics with an emphasis in managerial economics and a minor in Japanese. That's what I graduated with. And the reason why I went to Ag Econ is not that I want to go work on a farm, although today I would tell you I would absolutely work on a farm. But at the time, that wasn't my goal. It was the business degree for undergrads at Davis, and that's why I did that. And the emphasis in managerial economics was the route that helped me get a little bit more finance driven. But then so I gave you the reasons why I was working 4 jobs, because the Gap was the one thing that I stuck with. So I used it as my future job, because I then got into management, and I did that for about 5 years. When I got tired of working those late hours, flows, which means you work weekends, overnights, 24/7 days. And I wanted to apply to the corporate job at Gap. So I did, and didn't get there because it was very competitive at the time. Now I wonder, I probably could apply and get in there, but then it wasn't very possible. So I just quit. And that was a big leap of faith. I quit without having another job in place. I was working at the Gap. And then at the time, one of my managers at the store said, his girlfriend came in, and his girlfriend's like, hey, I work for this financial services company, and I don't know if this might be interesting to you, but I think a job just opened up. Let me see if I can get you connected. So I did. And that is sort of like the end of the story, right? Because as soon as I did that, went through the interview process, got hired, and so now I've been in the industry for that long. So it's a meandering road, as Emily just mentioned. That's just how I got here.
Awesome. Thanks, Mimi. Derek, yours was a path as well, maybe not quite as meandering, but I know your story is a little bit different, but it has some similarities.
Yes, thank you, Mimi and Emily. So to be straightforward, my degree is in consumer and family financial services with an emphasis in financial planning. As a 21-year-old college graduate, I had no idea what that really meant besides what I learned in the classroom. When it comes to financial services, there are so many areas that you can be a part of, if you will. A lot of it does have to do with what you know, but a lot of it also has to do with how you communicate with other people. And that's one thing we didn't learn in undergrad. So I did not get into the industry right away. Prior to my senior year, I interned with a financial services company here in Columbus. I enjoyed it, but it was not an eye-opening experience for me because I was doing back office work. I was doing marketing, emailing, and things that just didn't correlate to being a financial advisor, if you will. So I took my senior year as completing my degree, but then trying to figure out what I wanted to do. To be perfectly frank, I was bored my senior year. So I actually reached out to an oral surgeon in the area and just said, hey, do you have anything I can do at your office just so I can make a few extra bucks here and there? So I would go 4 to 6 hours a week and just start filing charts. That led to me going scrubbing instruments in the back. I was wearing scrubs. And then that led to me actually assisting in surgery. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I'm not going to lie, but I was at a ceiling when it came to income. So I shifted from the, I guess, dental medical field back into what my degree is in. And that's when I took the leap of faith and started interviewing with financial services companies here in Columbus. I found one that was going to pay me to get licensing. And that was the route that I took from degree to getting into the industry. And it was actually, I graduated in March of 2011 and didn't get into the industry until October of 2015. So although my degree is in the industry, I didn't get in right away. And it just goes to show that it's not so much how you get there, it's when you get there. It doesn't have to be when you're 22 years old. You can get into this industry as a 30-year-old, to be perfectly honest. We have advisors that are joining the industry in their 50s and are doing extremely well. So the path can be whatever you want it to be. Enjoy the path, because where you get is going to be the best part of it. So really, it was a not so meandering as Mimie's, but I still ended up right here where I am. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride so far.
And Rick, how about your path? How did you get there?
My broken road. Yeah, it's ironically, while I was in college, Mimie, I also worked at a hibachi. So I started at the University of Arizona in Tucson and walked on the rugby team. And at the time, U of A had the 4th ranked entrepreneurial school in the country, which is what I wanted to pursue. That's why I went down there. My grades were not good enough, so I was removed from that school and ended up completing a business degree with an emphasis in management from the University of Phoenix. I did 61 credits in 15 months with a 3.8 GPA. That's not the impressive part. The impressive part is I got kicked out of U of A for not producing grades. But I went back and got a degree. And some of the designations that I have, they do require a degree, but to get into this business does not require a degree. So I have friends that make mid to deep 6 figures of income that don't have a college degree. But with the business degree that I had, did that correlate to the industry? It may have, but while I was in college, I was heavily recruited by a number of financial companies, and I always had an interest in it. So I was reading books like the Series 7 and doing some self-study to really pursue that. I thought I wanted to be an investment banker. I graduated and then decided to dip my toes in the water and went retail banking. I was a retail banker making $9 an hour for the first year, until that just absolutely infuriated me. It was too dry. It was too dull. Didn't enjoy it. And ended up getting into some sales. I was doing business to business sales for an IT consulting company. Did really well. I'd been in sales really my whole life, but this was really my professional sales where I cut my teeth on it. From there, I started a consulting company where I was basically a matchmaker for different IT firms. And from that, I noticed that while I was playing golf, the people I was playing golf with were still making money, and I wasn't. If I wasn't sitting in front of somebody with knee to knee, elbow to elbow, sitting at the same table, I wasn't making any money consulting. So I noticed that all of them were in insurance or finance, which kind of led me to that direction. So I looked around and I intently chose to get into insurance. And I started at State Farm and very quickly found that even though I chose to get into insurance, the life insurance chose me. I had an early experience that I wish I could have done something for someone, and they ended up passing away before I had an opportunity, which really changed my direction and my focus. And as I continue to work and develop, my sort of evolution has gone from working with big agencies like the New York Lifes, and then building a firm on the independent side that operated in half the country, and now kind of coming back to more financial services. So it's been an interesting path, but by any measure, there are some benchmarks that as producers, as agents, that we can hit in our industry. So I'm in the top 1% in the world that does what we do. There's the $1 Million Roundtable, which I'm a top of the table member. So there's 1,700 of us in the world that achieve that rank. And then also Forum 400, there's 164 of us in the country that reach those qualifications. So I'm honored and blessed that I've been able to have an impact on a lot of other families. But the education piece, it's strange. In 2008, which was you guys are too young on this call to remember 2008 and what impact that had in the marketplace. But I did go back to school to pursue an MBA. And that was in 2008. I was the only one there that was already operating a company. So I decided that instead of talking about business, I could just go run my company. So I dropped out of my MBA. I did not finish it, but I've done a lot of graduate coursework after that, both in estate planning, financial services, and insurance and financial planning.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick. So we're going to mix it up and let you guys kind of talk a little bit. So, as the students, why are you here today? And, and what are you hoping to kind of, what are your goals? Where do you think you're going? What can this crew of phenomenal advisors help you to determine your path and how you want to get there, and what you see as your potential career? And if you don't want to unmute, that's fine. You can use chat as well to type in. But
oh man, Emily, I almost want to make them unmute. Let's bring them to the table here. Let's be belly to belly, man. This is exactly why you're here, right? To hear about it.
And I've talked to, well, so I'll throw Yoon-Lee out here. Yoon-Lee is actually an intern in my department at NAIFA.
Oh, okay.
So I talk to Yoon-Lee on a regular basis, and Tyler and Nathan have both been very active in the other sessions too. So
what school did you guys go to? I don't even know that. What school are you guys at?
So I went previously to University of California, Irvine. So when you mentioned Davis, I know Davis pretty well. That was one of the schools I was considering going to, but I lived previously in Los Angeles, so Irvine was a lot closer to me.
Yeah.
And then I transferred to the University of Florida, so that's where I am now. I'm finishing up a degree in economics.
Perfect.
So not quite agricultural econ, but very close. So I'm taking some classes that are part of the agricultural econ degree. So I have a little bit of understanding there.
Today, Yoon-Lee, what do you envision doing with that? Or is it, let's just see where the road takes me?
So it's kind of where the road takes me. I kind of know what I want to do, but it's hard for me to kind of nail down like two paths. One path was like the financial advisor path, and then kind of as COVID came on, I really started to like marketing and all that. So that's kind of what I'm doing for NAIFA now, is helping out with the marketing and things like that. So it's kind of like two paths in the road that I'm exploring. Do I want to go down like more of the marketing path or more of the financial advisor path? And I still kind of have a year of school to figure out what I want to do more. But that's kind of where I'm settled at this point.
The good news is you could do both, because as an advisor, and my fellow people, you will agree to this, you better be a good marketer in order to find the people to talk to you, in order to work with them. So if you don't know how to do that, it's going to be a tough business. You got to have people to talk to. So you're not on the wrong path. You're actually on the greatest path, because you're trying to do both. And that's going to be helpful for you all the way around.
Yeah, sometimes you really don't have to decide which niche you want to be in. I got into insurance and I thought I wanted to be a State Farm agent. I was very excited about being a State Farm agent for the rest of my career. I wanted to be on Main Street USA. I wanted, to be in, the hub of the town, and have my name on the sign, and everyone in town to know who I was. and I wanted them to walk in and have coffee with me. And I was really excited about all that. I wanted to sponsor the local, high school soccer team. I wanted to do all the things, but my career changed quite a bit, and really just a couple months in. And I've been blessed to bring a lot of new producers into this market. And look, I'm a life insurance guy, and I'll teach you all the nooks and crannies of life insurance. I could teach you a lot about a lot of things, but sometimes you don't know what your specialty is going to be in until you start traveling the path. And you don't have to decide that. Things kind of evolve, and you find out what you're interested in, or you have an experience that changes the way that you want. I used to love running illustrations, which is basically almost like spreadsheeting for policy design and trying to do different things and manipulate cases so that you can get them to perform better. I used to love that. I haven't done that in 8 years. So I have staff that does that, which also means that there's an opportunity for interns or young advisors or even senior advisors to plug into just doing that type of work. I mean, I dropped out of my master's econ class because I wasn't into that type of activity. So there's so many different directions you can go, and you don't have to decide that. You can let it evolve.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, Rick, it's just amazing to see how from when I got into the industry to where I am today, the direction has changed. It's always been the eventual finish line is always going to stay the same, but the direction to get there is always changing. Honestly, 5-6 years ago, I did not see myself being the income protection and life insurance expert for my team. Yes, I'm licensed to do all the investments, but I'm not an expert in investments. When I got into the industry, my big picture goal was to just be this whiz investment guy. Ultimately, you can know everything about everything with financial services, but if you don't have anyone to talk to, you're not going to be successful. So what happened is I learned different people, different careers, different industries, so I can go speak their language and we can have a very productive conversation, because the old saying is bluebirds fly with bluebirds. If you want to work with a specific group of people, that specific group of people typically hangs out with others in that career. So I found along the way a few different niches that I've had an affinity to, and that's where I built my career, or that's where I built my financial services career around. I work with a team of individuals. Again, I'm licensed to do it all, but I'm not the expert in specific areas. So I also bring in experts in those certain situations. To be perfectly frank, you never want to be the jack of all trades if you're in financial services, because there's always something that you don't know. That's why I'm confident enough in my own abilities to bring in an expert if it's something I don't know. So again, the career path may start here. It's going to take 100 different turns before you end up with, oh, this is exactly what I want. Most of the time, that's how it's going to be. Very rarely do you get into the industry and you just figure it out right away. You got to work with other people that have been doing it for a long time. You can't just fly by night and try and figure it out on your own. You have to really build a practice around yourself. And again, the path is whatever you want it to be. So Yuri, do what you want to do. Become an advisor and then do everything else along the way. Because again, if you're an advisor, you don't have to do it, quote unquote, full time as well. That is another wonderful thing about our industry, is we have the flexibility to do what we want to do when we want to do it, because we have been scheduling on our own. I have meetings at 9:30 p.m. I have meetings at 7 a.m. sometimes. My schedule is not 9 to 5, but I also have the ability to block off time to go see my kids, or to go, today's a perfect example. I'm actually working from my home office because of our childcare. We just had an issue with childcare today. So we are in an unbelievable industry, and you guys have any questions about what we do, how we got here, again, more than happy to keep answering those.
Yeah, Tyler, Nathan, either one of you want to jump off mute and talk about, what school you're going to, where you are right now, and your whole decision making and all of that?
Yeah. So I go to Ursinus College. It's a smaller school right outside of Philadelphia. I originally went there because they recruited me to play baseball, so I'm playing baseball there. So that's how I got to that school. But once I got to school, I got interested in finance and economics. So I'm studying finance, and then I'm doing a minor in data analytics. And for my career, right now, currently, I'm doing an internship at a financial advising firm. So that's one option, but I've also kind of looked at the marketing route as well as the investment banking. So I'm not really quite sure. There's a couple of different things I'm interested in.
Try all
So
of
I'm
them.
trying to kind of just see all of them and kind of get experience with all of them and see what maybe would interest me in the future.
Tyler, what school is it that you go to? I didn't hear it.
Ursinus College.
Ursinus College. I've never heard of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a smaller little liberal arts school, about 20 minutes outside of Philly.
Awesome. And Nathan, he just went off the camera, so maybe he's not going to join us on this. One thing I would say in general is I feel like in this day and age that if you can join an advisor team, like a team that's already well established, that has a mentor, it has junior advisors, has a staff. I mean, that to me is a great way to enter into the marketplace or enter into this industry, because you'll learn a lot from watching, and you'll spend that time maybe as a salaried employee, and you'll get to learn everything. And then when you're ready to grow your wings and go out there and see clients on your own, I just think it's just a safer way to do it. In the old school days, and remember, I'm the grandma of this group, okay? So in the old school days, it was, you better pound the phones, cold call, and find somebody to talk to. Yep. And it was, that's all you were doing. And you had to walk out each week with 10 appointments. And if you didn't have those 10 appointments, guess what you're doing? You're in on Saturday. That's right. And, that's not a bad habit to have, actually, to work on Saturdays. I have a lot of advisors, even today, who are 30, 40 years in the business, that'll come in on a Saturday, because guess what they get to do? Uninterrupted, 4 hours, 8 a.m. to noon, get some work done, work on their practice, working in their business, not just on their business, right? Or I should say working on their business, not working in their business only, but doing whatever it takes to continue to grow their business. Because remember, you're a business owner. Whether you, and sometimes when people think, oh, I'm just a salaried employee on a team, well, think about this. You got to start building those habits of being a business owner so that you can grow into your own practice, right? A lot of things you can start. I'll also say one thing, might be the unpopular opinion. In my new role today at an RIA, because remember, I was a broker dealer for a very long time, and it's a different kind of environment. I wish that I had gone to get my law degree. Wasn't even on my radar screen. But the law degree is not so much to be in practice, but to have the knowledge for all things that we do with our clients. Because when we think about building trust for our clients, and when we want to understand how money can flow within a family, those are things that a lot of times I wish I just had the right language when I review a trust. I want to know what that gibberish says, because it's not my normal vernacular. It's not my normal language. So anyways, maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think getting a law degree it can be really helpful.
I don't think that's unpopular at all. Not only would going and pursuing a law degree make you fantastic at reading. There's so much you have to read, but it's, I mean, as soon as we're done with this call, my next meeting is negotiating contracts with several different banks, because we do some leverage plans to life insurance, and working with high net worth individuals, which encompasses their estate plans and understanding trust documents and making sure that we're planning for legacy and the transfer of assets and taxation. I mean, I deal with law stuff every day. I'm just not an attorney. So usually I'm translating our business to attorneys and CPAs in order, and a lot of times guiding them and saying, look, this is what we need, draft us the documents. And I'm going through that stuff more than really they are.
Who had the alphabet soup? Was it you or Derek? Somebody has alphabet soup.
It was Rick.
Rick, yeah. Which is funny because, yes, on last week's call, Kathleen Owens talked about how she's like, I just, I got short, but she dropped the alphabet soup. So the students are already accustomed to the alphabet soup. But, that just goes to show, that I think that this career is continual. continuing, whether you get alphabet soup or not, there's a degree of keeping up with continuing education credits and, keeping up with the newest trends, because, one thing about this industry, as Mimie stated, when you start how many X number of years ago, is picking up the phone. Well, so much has changed, when you think about even just with COVID and, not being able to have everybody went virtual. And so there's so much that's rapidly changing about the way that we're communicating with each other across the board, that there's always opportunities to learn something new for growth, development. So I think, that's one of the important takeaways I have about this industry is, that quest for knowledge, I think is important as well.
Always be curious. If there's a mantra you could live by, always be curious. I also have another mantra, just say yes. I always just say yes. Oh, do you want to go to Spain?
I agree with that.
Yeah. Right. I love it. You just never know where that adventure will take you.
So my son is 8 now. So we've been in Houston for 8 years, if you're following the math. I've had such great opportunities in the industry and out, just because I raised my hand, not even knowing what I was volunteering for.
That's right.
Whether it was in this profession or elsewhere. Because I also have enough confidence in myself. Like, I have no idea what you're about to ask, but I know I can manage it. I can handle it. There's nothing you can throw at me that I can't deal with, or I'll find someone else that can. So I think where this business is difficult for some folks is because of the things like Derek has shared, and being able to have this fluidity with your calendar. Look, people die on holidays. People die on the weekends. I've paid over 150 death claims, which means nothing to the students on the call, but that's a lot. So yeah, I'm available, but I also look at my travel schedule. I'm traveling several times every month the rest of this year. Some of it's pleasure, some of it's business and pleasure. It comes down to being able to manage yourself. It also takes a lot of reps, kind of what Mimie was talking about, pounding the phone and getting that exposure. In order to really force experience, you have to have that right type of activity. But if you can't manage yourself, then it's going to be really, really difficult. You've got to have kind of this internal grit and this tenacity. And I also really like what Mimie had mentioned about this curiosity. I had zero interest in going through the designation and advanced coursework. I used to look at people with the alphabet soup and be like, there's just something wrong with you. And then for whatever reason, I decided to, because I was curious and I wanted to, part of it was I wanted to differentiate myself, but I also was more curious about the coursework. I knew that this was going to be my career. At one point I decided this is it. This is what I was called to do. This is the path that I was chosen. And I wanted to make some investments. So I traveled down and I got my first designation. And then it was kind of a slippery slope from there. It's, well, and now I'm curious about this coursework and this coursework and this coursework, but I'll also share an unpopular opinion, because once I got a CLU, that was really difficult for me. That you're talking. So this is coming from someone who's written over 15,000 individual life insurance policies. And I failed individual life insurance. The course within that designation, that coursework, I didn't pass that course. If there was one class that I should have been able just to wing, it would have been that. Yeah. Why, Mimie?
Because you learned it from a book perspective. The test is from a book perspective. You're in real life. And those two don't always align. I mean, That's think true. About that with the designation or the FINRA licenses. Sometimes when you're in the business already and now you have to go take the test, it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not how it's good at the broker dealer. So
I'll agree with that. So a CLU is called, it's the abbreviation for Chartered Life Underwriter, which is the highest designation specific for life insurance. There was some stuff in there talking about where insurance companies are domiciled and the types. So like, I think there are people that own life insurance companies that don't know some of the stuff that we studied. It was very, very granular. But from that, and this is the unpopular part, from that, I tell folks, friends don't let friends buy life insurance from someone who's not a CLU. Because like knowing what I know now, if I was going to buy life insurance, I would want them to have that. So do consumers know that? No, they don't. But getting a license, being registered, that's kind of step one. Getting with a firm so that you can get some education and some mentorship, which is really where the real knowledge comes from, like Mimie had stated. But having the extra coursework and maybe it's specialized. My designations, all of my coursework are really granular, very specialized, one-dimensional, because that serves me. My clients are better served because of my knowledge, on that path.
Nathan, talk to us. Who are you? What school are you going to? What do you want to do? When are you going to be the next best life insurance advisor?
Maybe not life insurance, but I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I originally came to America on a soccer scholarship.
Nice.
Go to the University of North Florida. I completed my undergraduate degree in finance in 2021. Afterwards, I worked in a mortgage company for about a year. And that was an interesting experience because it exposed me to a client-facing industry where I was more on the front end. So I was really interacting with the clients. And after that, I decided I'm going to go back and do my master's in data analytics. And long story short, one of my professors, he's just kept on urging me. He's like, I think you're going to be a financial planner. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And he's like, I'm telling you, man. He's like, here's what, I'm going to take you to a conference, BNY Mellon Insight in Orlando.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, you're going to really get a sense of the industry and you'll have a better perspective on whether or not you want to pursue a career in it. And ever since I attended that conference, I'm like, this is what I want to do. So since then, I've just been on a mission in terms of like networking and trying to gain more knowledge about the industry. One thing I wanted to clarify is what's the difference between a financial planner and a wealth manager?
Good question. I was just about to say something about that, but I shouldn't jump in. Derek, do you want to start? I have my opinions.
Well, in my opinion, there can be a lot of crossover. Typically speaking, wealth management is more along the lines of growing your assets for your future self. But that's really on the surface level, where financial planning can have wealth management as a part of it, but planning can be much bigger picture. It is a 30,000-foot view all the way down to a 1-foot view. And it's not just based on assets, it's based on human emotion and human interaction, and it's really based on decision making for your future self, your future family, whatever it may be. But in my opinion, there's definitely a lot of crossover between the two.
Yeah, I think that was really good. It's overly simplified version. The wealth management is managing that portfolio, looking for growth. The financial planning, sitting down. What are your thoughts, feelings, concerns? Designing a plan, hopefully executing the plan and the recommendations of such, and then continually reviewing that financial plan.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of both of them. Wealth management, it's funny, when I was at Lincoln, I thought of wealth management still similar or the same as financial planning. It's not, because it was just a title. But really, when you look at wealth management, it is more about that portfolio and understanding what the goals are with the portfolio, but really building a portfolio that is in line with the client's risk tolerance to make sure that are using asset allocation. What are you using to continue to balance that portfolio? Financial planning, as Rick just said, it's more holistic. It's looking at the entire financial picture from a cross-disciplinary basis, not just from a legal or accounting perspective, but across the board. And this is where we're going to look at, hey, so Nathan, you have 2 kids and one of them's in the business and one's not. What do you want to see happen? What's your goal? You and your wife want to go and go retire by the time you're 55 and you want to go travel the world. What's your budget look like? What does that look like for you? I mean, it's asking those simple but very important questions, because sometimes those clients have never even thought about those things. They haven't really taken the time to see where what they like and want fits into what they have to do in order to achieve those goals, right? We look at longevity. So, by the time you retire at 65, let's say, you've got another about 20 to 25 years of living. Do you have enough saved to live those 20 to 25 years? So planning, financial planning, I call it just planning because it's underneath that there's investment planning, education planning, estate planning, retirement planning, fill in the blanks, there's planning. So planning is really looking at your client's entire financial picture from a cross-disciplinary basis. More
Okay.
holistic.
I just have one additional question with respect to planning. In terms of the unforeseen circumstances that I'm sure happens a lot, how does adjusting the plan, what does that look like? Or is that something that is in terms of like somebody unexpectedly passing away, so on and so forth? What does that look like?
That's when the fun starts. And I hate to say something so happy when it's like something so sad when there's a death, because all the work you've done now comes into play. Now you get to see it work for the family. The life insurance, what Rick just talked about, those 150 policies, I don't know if you heard him say that when he said he has to deliver 150 claims. Yes, it's work, but think about the value that Rick felt knowing that he's taking care of the families. He's made sure those families have something in place so that they can have a legacy and continue to live on, even though that breadwinner or somebody who's important in that family has passed away. That's impactful. So to me, the joy of what we do, the why what we do happens when a death happens, unfortunately, because now we get to see our work.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I think of, the basis of financial planning of any manner, so we talk about this financial pyramid, and there's really only three sectors that I talk about in the pyramid. So the base of that pyramid is typically protection, because if something happens to you or happens to your income, then we can't do anything else. So we need to take care of that first. Okay. The second tier is the accumulation phase. So this is your wealth management. We're growing assets. We're having fun. Some people call it the sexy part. I think the life insurance part's the sexy part. But so the accumulation being in the middle of that. And then the top part of the pyramid, that's the really fun stuff. So that's the legacy planning. That's now me transferring assets. So we're talking about future generations, so that my great grandkids can go to college because I had the wherewithal to build a family endowment fund, whatever the case. But that base, that protection side, it's a really interesting business. And yes, I'm extremely biased because of my focus being on the insurance side, is that regardless of the risk, and really insurance is the transfer of risk, instead of withholding that ourselves, instead we're transferring it to someone else, typically an insurance company, and we pay for the ability to do that. But if something weird happens along the way or to our plan, we can offset that. So if you died, which happens, and I've been blessed to come to the party with a check when everyone else has their hand out, I get to actually put money in their hand and see what that money does. So all of the rest of that pyramid, because we had protection in place, it self-funds. Everything else can be taken care of if we had the proper levels of planning. But yes, that does happen. And there's always adjustments along the way. Goals change in those financial plans. Right now, or last year specifically, I won't speak to this year, but interest rates inverting, and a down market, how does that affect our plan? That's why we exist. And one thing that I'll touch on, and then I'll leave it alone, is this business being so incredible. Again, supremely biased in my opinion, but I make a pretty good living and have for quite some time. But I don't know any other industries where you can have such a multi-generational impact on families. And regardless of what I get paid, it's a fraction, a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the good and the impact that I have on these other families and these generations. It's very, very fulfilling. Yes, bad stuff happens, but that's also why we put planning in place. You know what's really bad is when someone calls me, "Hey, Rick, I found your business card. I don't know what this is about. It says life insurance on your business card." What sucks is if I have to tell them, "You know what, I'm sorry, your dad didn't decide to put a plan in place." Instead, what's really cool is, you know what? I got you. I told your dad I would help you negotiate your funeral. You're going to be okay. Your dad loved you. We have a plan in place. This is what's next. That is way more gratifying than the first part of what I said.
Derek, given where you specialize in with dentists and things like that, I'm sure like if somebody all of a sudden they break their hand and they can no longer practice. I mean, so, is a little bit more positive than just death. What other contingencies are there?
Yeah. So along the lines of Rick's pyramid, our process our first step is always protection first. You can't do everything else unless you have the protection in place. If you don't have the income, or if you're not there, there's nothing else that can be done. I work with a lot of dentists across the country. The introduction to these dentists is almost exclusively based on protecting their income. They have spent at a minimum 8 years, 4 undergrad, 4 dental school. That's just to become a general dentist. That's not if they specialized in something else. $250,000+ in student loan debt with a very, very, very high income earning potential. That money-making machine needs to be protected at all costs, because everything else that is going to come along with that luxurious lifestyle as a dentist would be gone should that income stop. So my goal the first time I meet with someone is to make sure that their income is protected and their family is protected. God forbid there is an unexpected death or an accident or an illness that takes them out of work. It's pennies on the dollar to protect your income, pennies on the dollar to protect with life insurance. But without those two pieces in place, especially if there are others that more or less rely on you, you really can't think of how am I going to be investing all my money if my income were to stop. So that's the biggest part of the conversation, is how do we make sure we're protecting it today so we can have that fun, that sexy, that accumulation part when things are flying high. Even if there is a disruption, there is an unforeseen event that occurs that takes them out of work, they're good. Their family is going to be covered. We make sure that's first so that we can get to the fun stuff. That is the hardest part of understanding, especially when you're young. You're never younger than you are today. And I can almost guarantee most of us will never be healthier than we are today. Get as much as you can, as young as you can. That's all that it comes down to. That's the biggest part of introducing myself to people. And that's how I grow from a product into a process, because yes, I don't like to consider myself a product salesperson, but in reality, I'm selling some products. How do those products correlate to the overall picture? And that's when process and planning comes in, as opposed to product. Yes, products are important. We will talk about those. How do those correlate to everything else that you want to do in your life, especially when it comes to cash flow? So it's a big deal to make sure your income's protected. Life insurance is extremely important. Making sure those things are solid so that you can have the fun and do the accumulation stuff along the way.
Derek, it's you don't know this. We haven't had the opportunity to spend a lot of time together yet, but so my father was an orthodontist, and he retired at 55 after taking a disability claim. So he died at 78. He drew a pretty good chunk of change every single month from 55 to when he died at 78 because of a policy that covered his vision. So when people think about life insurance, you don't just have to die in order to have your life insurance pay. I talk about kind of dying, which maybe for a different call, we'll talk about it, but also disability. Some people think about, well, you know, I'm still of sound mind. I can work remotely. I can do Zoom. I can do a lot of stuff. But a lot of people don't understand, even if you threw your back out, you're probably going to be on different types of medications. And think about our industry. Do you want someone managing your portfolio if they're hopped up on pain meds or whatever the case? So those disability products are fantastic. And I was a beneficiary of one.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
So I'm gonna so I know we've all three of you have kind of talked about little tips and things like that about, oh, you know, here's some little pieces of advice. But thinking back where you are now, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known when you started your career in financial services?
I would love to go real quick because Mimie and Rick both hit on this earlier. It's two things for me. One, it's literally saying yes. You have to be open to opportunity. That's one. I was so close-minded when I got into the industry. It was not that I just didn't see the big picture. I just didn't see more than 10 feet in front of me. So opening your mind is huge, but also the power of asking. If you just have the ability to ask someone, it doesn't matter what you're asking. Most of the time, people are going to say yes. So make sure you ask. It's as simple as the Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, that's the same thing with asking. If you don't ask someone, you never know what you might or might not get.
I thought your Wayne Gretzky quote was going to be "Go where the puck's going."
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But that's a good one too.
Go ahead, Mimie.
Boy, one thing actually it's kind of stumped me. Like I feel like there's just so many things, but I think that, you know, when I first got into the company, I thought, oh, I'm only going to be here for 5 years because they say, you know, you change your job every so many years, right? But I stuck with Lincoln for a number of years. So Rick, you're on my LinkedIn now. Now you'll see how many years. But my point is that the benefit of what I did at Lincoln was that I was able to have actually a lot of jobs within the same company. So I was always the person who said yes. I said, okay, yeah, I'll volunteer for that. Although I was getting paid extra for it, I will do X, Y, and Z. But what I also did when I was there was start building my own business as well. So I wanted to have, I was ultimately helping advisors be the best for their end client. But then I wanted to make sure that I understood what it was like to be the advisor, right? So if you have an opportunity to grow your business, plus if you could help, that's for me, I'm just a helper. I want to help. That was probably one of the best things I got out of being at Lincoln was that I was able to do both and really grow and really help advisors across the country. So I have a really good perspective. I know what it's like to build a business and how hard it can be. And where it's really evolved over time. So from the cold calling days, which is not a bad thing because it helped to build, you know, some thick skin, to where we are today. And how do you manage meeting new people in today's environment, leveraging Zoom, asking for introductions, making the ask, right? Just asking. So I don't know if I answered that question, but those are my thoughts.
So it's I really liked what both of my counterparts had said. There's a Latin phrase called sine metu, which roughly means to go forward without fear. And I think once you have an understanding that there's really not much you can screw up if you're surrounded with good people, it's you're not going to accidentally make a trade and lose everyone's money. Yeah, you can make some bad recommendations, but frankly, in this business, there's not a lot that anyone knows for certain. We don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow. I kind of know what it's going to do today. I got a little stock ticker over there. It's an interesting business. I think what I wish I would have known sooner, because my role has evolved quite a bit over the years. Less going out and seeking business on my own than mentoring or helping with advanced planning, advanced cases for other agents around the country, sometimes around the world. I wish I would do more around the world thing because that's fun to do. But being able to do more work with other advisors and not just thinking, you know what, this is mine and I don't want anyone else in it. Instead, there's so much my trajectory was pretty good on its own, but golly, it could have been, I could have skyrocketed so much faster if I would have plugged in, if I would have brought in other advisors. In our professional association, it really has been a blessing to me because it gave me the opportunity to benchmark and to get the fellowship and to learn from those who had traveled the path before me. There's some things that just don't really change, which is great, but the industry and the market, how our products evolve, that stuff's constant. And sometimes I'm so focused in one area that I'm going to miss what's happening. Even on this call, we all have very different specialties. So I would much rather, when I talk to a dentist, to get Derek involved. Could I do it? Sure. I'm licensed to do a bunch of other things that I just don't do. I have other insurance people that write plans on me. Could I do it myself? Could I sell it to myself? Could I get paid a small commission on it? Sure. But some things are important enough to have a specialist. But if I'm having heart issues, am I going to see a chiropractor? I think I'll go see a cardiologist. And that's kind of where I see it. So I tell folks that I'm basically the plastic surgeon of life insurance. That's my specialty. But if I wish I would have known and realized and practiced earlier to get involved with other people, whether they're in my organization or not. You know, talking to folks at different events can either confirm what you already thought or disrupt what you thought you knew so that you can level up to the next stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know we've said this, this is our third session, but we've said this numerous times to the students is, NAIFA is a network of people. And, we've talked to Kathleen, we've talked to John Richardson, we've got these three great people on right now, and they're all over the country, but they're all still connected. Whether they just met today or, have known each other and worked with each other and seen each other at events for the last 10 years, you have that commonality and, in making those connections. So, Rick now is like, hey, okay, if I know somebody who is working, is trying to get in with a dentist, like, hey, I know that I've got my buddy over here in Columbus who, specialize. And so it's so important to build that network. And that's one of the reasons why NAIFA does this program in general, is because when you're in that college stage, you've got your network of your peers, but where's your professional network? Where you go, how are you making those next connections? And that's why we want to give you this exposure to all of these different financial professionals who can help you network and help you make those connections. And just because, Mimie lives outside of San Francisco, but you live in Florida, that doesn't mean that she doesn't know somebody who can put you in the right conversation and things like that. So just going back to that point, that's always so important. We got a couple minutes left, so I want to just see if there's any other questions from the students, any other final thoughts.
While we're waiting for them to answer, I just encourage you guys to reach out to us if you have any questions or if you want a further discussion outside of this call. I'll volunteer for myself, but Rick and Derek, I don't know about you guys, but I'll volunteer myself to have further conversations.
Yeah, if you guys are on LinkedIn is a really easy way to track me down. You can see my name on the screen. I love, Emily, that you brought that up. So it's Kathleen and JDR, John, they're already, they're great friends of mine. I serve with them on some other committees. Derek and Mimie aren't aware, but I've got other commonalities with them. I got married in California, and we did a lot of stuff in San Francisco before we got married. And then Derek, we share an exec, since you've got Renee Davies. Yeah, so the business is fantastic. It's tough. I think good things are difficult. It's for the right people. It can be a really, really rewarding career.
I know what I was going to say. I want to also, I see Yuri has a question really quick. I want to just set the realistic or the reality of it all, which is this is a failure business, but when you win big and wonderfully. So when I say failure, you're going to hear no's more often than yeses, but the yeses are tremendous because you really know that you're making impact on that family. So just remember that. Don't get discouraged, because every day it'll be right. It'll be up and down. And when you get those down days, it's okay. Just take a breather, go take a walk, go do something else, because tomorrow's a whole new day. I promise you that. Yuri, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question. I know, Rick, you mentioned travel for business. So I was wondering for you three, how does your time get split up between like traveling, right, for business, working from an office, working from home? Do you guys like decide that? And, what are the reasons for traveling for business? Is it to meet with clients, meet with, other advisors, things like that?
Go to NAIFA events.
Yeah,
so I've actually limited a lot of my travel. I'm really just focused on 2 different organizations. Most of that travel is coming up for that. One of those being NAIFA, the other Forum 400, which I'm blessed to be a part of. And so there's a lot more that I could do, but I don't. And I think the roles change and evolve. So it kind of depends. We have a new building that we just finished. We'll move in August 1st. It's been 3 years in the making. So I expect our whole team to be there every day. Will there be individual circumstances? My assistant, for instance, just had a baby like 4 days ago, maybe 5. So she has the option to do this. I'm in my home office right now because we haven't moved into the office space. So it kind of depends. The industry is much more accepting now of having some flexibility, which I think serves the younger market and where y'all are coming from. So the expectations and what that looks like can be very different. Sometimes I have travel that's paid for me because I also get asked to do speaking engagements. I serve on boards, but there's plenty of other times where I'm paying out of pocket for stuff. So it just kind of depends, which is the answer to everything in this business is it depends.
Mhm.
And quick piggyback off of that. Yes, the flexibility is great. I will be frank. I am 90% more productive in my office as opposed to my home office. So it is, again, it's totally up to you how you want to be working, where you want to physically be working. But no one's requiring me to be at my office. But I am much more productive there. Just throwing that out.
I think there's
It's good for
going to be
culture too, being in the office, because you learn from each other, and it's being able to pour into each other. It's, you know, an email's fine, a phone call's fine. We use different chat things and whatnot, but being able to just walk into an office and breathe and have a sigh and talk about a client or a case, or, you know what, I don't really understand that concept. What's that look like? Or just, you know, just being around each other, you learn through osmosis, and it's great for your development. It's great for the culture and everything.
Well, if you guys watch Dan Buettner, the Blue Zones author and sort of expert, he talks about community, right? That's how you create longevity in your life. Where he has found the most centenarians is because they have community. They get together and they, you know, in their village or whatever, but it's just the whole point is that the community is important. So don't discount that. As much as it's
Absolutely.
important. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. I, you know, hope that this was a very insightful conversation for everybody, you know, get a chance to kind of get to know some different stories. And, you know, there's clearly no one path to get you to where you want to be. Everybody's got a different story. And I know you've kind of experienced that throughout, but it's a great opportunity to talk to these three financial services professionals and really get their insights and have an opportunity. So Mimie, Rick, and Derek, I thank you for taking the time out of your day to really interact with these students and get to know them. So I appreciate all of you. And students, you know, are 3/4 of the way done. We've got one more next week, and that is with Chris Gandy, who I think everybody else on this call is familiar with as well. And so Chris has another interesting story, like all of our presenters do, but Chris's professional career started by playing basketball for a little team called the Bulls, and so he's got some, and may have been on the same team as a number 23. So it's got some interesting insights as far as that goes. And so looking forward to wrapping up our session. You know, come with your questions. We always appreciate that. And we will see you all next week. Speakers, thank you for your time today.
Pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.